If you like to make your NFL games a little bit more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast. We are, of course, presented by DraftKings. Love those of you that use the code Ross, whether you're a new customer or long existing customer, whether it's the DK Horse app or DraftKings Sportsbook app, or, of course, just the regular DraftKings app, where we are still taking entries to be in the best ball contest with me and Joe Dolan. No entry fee. You hear Steve talk all the time about the value of getting these bonuses or getting free spins at the wheel. How about a best ball tournament, fantasy football, against me and Joe Dolan from the Fantasy Feast podcast, where there's no entry fee. You don't have to pay it. DraftKings is paying it for you, but you can still win the grand prize at the end of the season, which is pretty awesome. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Most of you guys know that, at Ross Tucker NFL on every social media platform you're on, right? So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Also, a big fan of what we post at Ross Tucker Pod, which is sort of the network's account on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow both, at Ross Tucker NFL, at Ross Tucker Pod. While you're at it, by the way, follow Steve Fezzik at Fezzik Sports and only at Fezzik Sports. He's actually got a really good account. He's highly opinionated, which cracks me up. He just posted a picture of his first trip ever to Vegas back in '86. So I recommend following at Steve Fezzik. Actually, at Fezzik Sports is his handle. His name is Steve Fezzik. At Fezzik Sports. By the way, Steve, we had several questions just based on last week that people wanted to chime in on. So we'll get to those a little bit later on in the show. But I've been waiting for this for 2 weeks. We are diving into your NFL games of the year. You already, Steve, have 4, is that right? 4 NFL games of the year. And why are they your games of the year?
Well, they're just called games of the year. It used to be that Sportsbook would put up selective games of the year for the biggest games, and now they just put up, DraftKings does at least, every single game. So I still call them games of the year, any game that's not week 1. But in this case, we're going to be dissecting weeks 2 and 3, and I've identified 4 bets that I feel are worthy of investing in.
I love it. All right, so why weeks 2 and 3 as opposed to week 1?
Because week 1, these numbers have been picked over. The sharpest bettors in the world, there's much higher limits, so they feel it's worthy of their time to go ahead and have invested in. So I'll make the case that some of the best bets have been made. The numbers are gone. Example, I love Pittsburgh +3 against Atlanta. Can't get +3 anymore. So quite a few of the very best bets have been taken out of the market. That's not the case for subsequent weeks.
Got it. Okay, so then let's dive into that a little bit more. Why is it not the case for subsequent weeks? Because the limits are lower for subsequent weeks?
Exactly. So most books are taking, $1,000 or less, and any betting syndicate or big group is like, it's not worth the hassle and the time. And also, just the accounting of it. If you're having someone bet for you or you're sharing accounts, you don't want to be carrying this for 3 months and then have to go back. Wait, what would we bet? Back in June. For an individual bettor, it's fine, but individual bettors, Ross, they're spending more time trying to figure out who's going to win the NHL Game 5 right now or MLB today than to bother with what's going to happen in the middle of September in football.
Okay, so then let's dive into, Steve, exactly where we're at with these games of the year, as you're calling them. Why are they only NFL week 2 and week 3? I'm looking at what you texted me. I'm a little surprised that none of your quote-unquote games of the year are later in the season.
Because we got to have great content all summer, and next week I can do weeks 4 and 5, Ross. Let's keep going.
Well, by the way, I should do this. I listen to other podcasts sometimes. Here's what we got on today's show, right? I should give you guys a little bit of a piece. We're going to get into Steve's NFL games of the year. Then we're going to get into the Vegas-based contests that Steve recommends you get involved in. Then he's got an MLB bonus play. And then we've got several questions. We either get them people that take advantage of any of our sponsors like Labatt or DraftKings or Factor Meals. They'll email it to me, ross@rosstucker.com. Or we have patrons who are submitting questions. We love the patrons. Patreon.com/RT Media. Of course, that's obviously how you get all of our bets all season long. Patreon.com/RT Media. So let's start with week 2. That's what we got today, but we're starting with week 2, Steve. What do you got?
So, Cincinnati Bengals at Kansas City. We're going to take the Bengals +4. You know, when you're shopping for a house, the first thing you do is the price fair on a house you like? You look at the comps. You look at what the comparable houses are selling for. Well, Kansas City, they're hosting Baltimore week 1, and the line is like 2.5 to 3, mostly 2.5s though. So Kansas City's -2.5. I'll make the case Baltimore and Cincinnati, not much difference between those two teams in my power ratings. But what is different is the point spread when they're playing in Arrowhead, Burrowhead, some people like to refer to. The Bengals are catching 4. And anyone who's watched this show knows Ross and I, we don't like +2.5, but we love +3.5, and we love us some +4. So the price is right on Burrowhead and company, +4 at the Chiefs.
Any concern there, Steve, that the Chiefs play opening night on a Thursday night so they have extra time to rest and prepare for the Bengals?
I thought about this, but you know what? The extra rest and time, and I wanted to ask you as an NFL player, I think it's much more valuable later in the year after getting all dinged up. Would you agree with that?
1,000%. And I would also say, I don't know what those guys will do that weekend, right? I mean, that's still pretty early in the season, so those guys will all probably go do something fun, or a lot of them will. Remember, everybody gets the prior weekend off, Labor Day weekend off. So it's not like these guys have been in a grind, right? I mean, they've been in a grind of training camp and preseason, but then they get Labor Day weekend off for the most part, at least get a couple days off usually. So they're usually in a better place, that early in the season. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. It probably does help the Chiefs coaching staff to have those extra days to prepare for the Bengals. But, Steve, they've got so many people now that they're already preparing for the next opponent ahead of time anyway now these days. You know what I mean? Like, they've got people that are already working a week and a half ahead that already are doing that work. Now, it's not like they're like, oh, all right, cool, now we can work on this team. Like, no. They have advanced scouts that are scouting the team that they play 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, right? So that stuff's already happening a little bit. Good point. And yes, I do love the +4. What about what's your other game?
So I'm going to lay it in the other game. I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers -3 at Denver. Now, Denver's been historically very good at home early in the year with the altitude advantage, but that hasn't been nearly the edge that it was back 10, 15 years ago. And bottom line is, I have Pittsburgh. They're supposed to win 8.25 games, meaning 8 to 8.5 games. But it's because their schedule is so difficult, and they have that gauntlet at the end of the year. Pittsburgh's an average team, at least. And Denver, many are making either the Patriots or the Broncos be the worst team in the NFL right now. So if I get an average team against the worst team in the NFL, they have to be laying more than 3. I'll lock in the -3 on a game. I'm pretty confident it's going to go to -3.5.
Okay. I like it. So that's almost betting as much as anything else on movement in the numbers. You're trying to get ahead of the number.
Exactly. And the money line's -155. So that's attractive. I love that about DraftKings. Not only, Ross, in these games of the year do they put up a spread, they put up a money line on all of them as well.
And that's rare? I only look at DraftKings. I don't really know.
Oh, it's very rare. Every one of their competitors they just don't do this. And when they do it, they put up a spread, but not a money line.
Wow, that's good to hear. We got to cut that clip, Jack. Send that to our fans and friends over at DraftKings about 9 minutes in. That they will love hearing that from you, Steve. All right, what about NFL Week 3, Steve?
Sticking with the Pittsburgh Steelers are undervalued theme, money against the Steelers in the season wins market just because of how difficult their schedule is. But I trust Tomlin and the Steelers to be a solid team. I don't trust the Chargers. They lost all their skill position players. Harbaugh's a great coach. It's going to take a while for that team to gel. Pittsburgh at home, minus 125. I'm getting the slightly better team with the home field against a team that's got to travel all the way across the country. Give me Pittsburgh minus the 125.
So I'm curious about this, Steve. Do you have any concern yet that you have bets on Steelers the first 3 weeks? Like, what if Russell Wilson gets? I guess they have Justin Fields now, but like, do you ever look at that? Like, we're months away, and you already have placed bets for the Steelers the first 3 weeks. Are you like overweighting your Steelers portfolio, if that makes sense?
You know, it's a great question, and you know what mitigates it is I actually love the Steelers under 8.5 wins, and I bet my balls off on that bet because the back end of the schedule is so difficult. So I would like nothing better than to win 2 out of 3 of these bets, have the Steelers start 2-1, and then that schedule is going to catch up with them down the road.
Wow. That is really interesting. All right, what else you got for week 2?
more.
So you bet on the Steelers to win the first 3 games, but you quote unquote bet your balls off that they're going to go under 8.5. That is putting a lot of stock, I would say, in the schedule, given their Mike Tomlin's track record. All right, what's your other week 3 game?
Yeah, look at that gauntlet that they have to run. It's like the Clint Eastwood having to run the gauntlet in that movie, The Gauntlet, which you probably have never seen because it was in the 1970s.
That is correct.
Kansas City at Atlanta. You know what? I'm going to lay the 3 on Kansas City. And what sways me here, it's a Sunday night football game. It's a primetime game. Atlanta, their season win number's 9.5, but that's because they got a cupcake of all cupcake schedules. Atlanta's a pretty average team. Kansas City's the best team in the NFL. You can't have the best team laying only 3 against an average team. They need to be laying 3.5 or 4. So again, I'm getting in front of what I believe will be a likely line move. I'm going to lay the 3 with KC before that line goes higher.
I love it, Steve, almost as much as I'm loving these factor meals these days. No prep, no mess meals. My wife actually introduced these to me before they even wanted to advertise on the show. They're fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. I was at Jason Kelsey's charity golf tournament yesterday. He's been eating the factor meals too, and he talks about it on his show. He loves them. Listen, if you're trying to lose a little bit of weight, like me and Jason, former offensive lineman, trying to keep your weight down, absolutely great way to go. Head to factormeals.com/even50 and use code even50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code even50 at factormeals.com/even50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. The other thing that I did yesterday at that golf tournament, drank some beers. You should drink some Labatt Blue Lights. Gosh, they're so good. I believe it's the best tasting light beer of all time. It just has this unique flavor to it that I love. Yummy, yummy, get in my tummy. Always enjoy responsibly beer. Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. I will, by the way, Steve, post on at least, maybe TikTok too, but at least Instagram and Facebook. I did chug a beer at, I chugged several, but the one on video at Kelsey's charity. It was a pounder and out of a can. Not easy to chug out of a can, not easy to chug a pounder, but you'll have to follow me on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. Maybe I'll post on Twitter and TikTok as well, and we'll see what you guys think of that. All right, let's get to the MLB bonus play, Steve. I like it.
And before I do that, you know, back in the 80s, I had some crazy friends. They used to cut out like the bottom of the 2-liter, Coke bottles. and they'd pour beer into it because it would, the flow of it would make it so much easier to chug quickly. I, of course, never partook in any such activity. Let's go to baseball. Cleveland, the Tribe, whatever they're calling themselves, they're going to win the division. Cleveland has been rock solid despite losing their ace to start the year. They're almost 20 games above 500. It's a 3-team race. Minnesota and Kansas City, neither one of those teams is even 10 games above 500. And yet Cleveland, the best team with a big lead, a 5-game lead over their competitors, is only minus 130 to win their division in the American League. And we're going to go with Cleveland to win the division.
Why do you think they're only minus 130?
I think it's likely because of preseason expectations that they're using that as an anchor. Cleveland was only supposed to win 80 games this year, and then they lost Bieber, so that lowered their expectations, and the marketplace has just been so slow to adjust to the fact that Cleveland, in April, they almost had the best record in the league. And then in May, they almost had the best record in the league, and they're doing fine in June. But oftentimes what happens is all these stat geeks, they look at how good a team's supposed to be, and they're very slow to change the power ratings on MLB teams for whatever reason, whereas they're much more fluid and quick to change football teams' power ratings.
Got it. That's interesting. What about these contests, Steve, that you think people should get involved in
Yeah,
Vegas?
I'm really excited. Circa came out with their guarantees. And so Circa Survivor, winner take all. There's probably going to be a push, probably going to be several winners. $10 million guaranteed, Ross. Circa Millions. Circa is guaranteeing $6 million. So think about it. Like last year in Circa Millions, 5,000 people. And I finished 21st. But if they get 5,000 people again, automatically, boom, you're getting an extra 16% payout because Circa is going to pony up from 5 million up to 6 million, the amount of money in the prize pool. Never any rake. So if 7,000 people sign up, there'll be no overlay, but every dollar is returned. Contrast that with the World Series of Poker going on right now. Caesars, they're raking like 15% on some of these events. Who wants to play with a 15% rake when you can play with a 0% rake or even a minus rake if there's an overlay?
I'll be staying out there at the Circa July 9th and 10th for the Mountain West Media Days, actually, Steve. So mark it down, July 9th and 10th. We're having dinner one of those nights or something. I'll be out there at the Circa. That place is incredible. We need to get them as a sponsor. We talk about them enough here. We got to reach out to them, get those guys to sponsor the show in some way. We have a bunch of people, Steve, that had really good questions I want to get to because they were related to last week. Okay? Oh, man, I don't even know if I have the name for all of them. But Chris, our buddy Chris, who's on Patreon, okay? I listened to your question to Steve about the six score. Will the books bake in the six score information? And his response confused me a bit. I'm hoping to clarify here. My understanding has always been that the books will handicap a game, but they're trying to set the line such that they induce action on both sides with some tolerance to their position. For example, if the book handicaps that the Ravens will outright beat the Chiefs on opening night, they're not going to open with the Ravens as the favorite because they'd be completely over-leveraged. Rather, they may shave a point or two off the spread. This is from our buddy Chris from Steakhouse, who's a Patreon member, patreon.com/RTmedia. Is he right? Is he wrong, Steve?
He's right, but he's giving too much credit to the recreational bettors. So what the recreational bettors are going to do a pretty good job with is adjusting for a quarterback injury. All right, so that aspect of that Sports Injury Central, the Dr. Chow group that does such a great job rating all the teams, everyone knows about that quarterback injury. That's not going to help you as that part of the score. But what's really going to help you is when there's cluster injuries in the secondary or in the O-line. Well, the sports books know that the average bettor isn't paying that much attention to that, and that because of that, it's not going to impact how much they're betting on teams and which teams they're going to bet on. And that's why these SIC scores can be so valuable to the professional bettor, where oftentimes they're going against what the public is betting because the public is just betting based upon how a team has performed and not the current health status of the team.
So wait, but is he right that the books will shave a point or two off based on where they expect the money to come in?
Well, the books, yeah, he's absolutely correct. The book just wants to balance, the vast majority of the books. So all they're doing is trying to anticipate what number do they need to hang such that they get balanced action. There are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, that's what books are trying to do.
Got it. I'm trying to find the name of this next question, but I can't find it. I grabbed the email question, but I forgot to get the name. Whoever that is, they said, I was listening to June 11th Even Money Pod. There was a question from a listener about taking the next step. I have a follow-up to that question because bonus hustling is also my first option when teaching a new bettor how to build a bankroll. But we take it to the next level and bonus hustle on multiple books with the idea of finding arbitrage matched bet opportunities to make things move a bit more quickly. The caveat to this strategy is the increased likelihood of getting accounts limited. I was wondering what Steve's big picture perspective is on maintaining good account health and avoiding the dreaded situation of being limited.
Sure, great question. So as an example, we'll go into NFL Week 1. Let's say you had a bunch of bonuses that you're splashing into books, and you just want to churn it. You want to get through your rollover requirements. Boom. I'll take the Lions -3. They're playing the Rams, but I'll take the Rams +4 because both were available out there. And there were several games that applied, like we talked about the Steelers +3, or you can take Atlanta -2.5. Break-even bets, playing both sides pretty much. But now you fulfill your bonus requirements. You're building your bankroll. Then step 2, after you churn through all those bonuses, I would say find the really soft book that you can take advantage of. I'll give 2 examples, really good books to bet on. Go up to Reno for a little while, bet against the Peppermill Reno. Very unique numbers in Reno, as you can imagine, because they have, just the only people betting there live in Reno. Or go over to Delaware Downs, close to you, Ross. At the racetrack, there are some very, very unique numbers that you won't see anywhere else.
I don't understand why would that be the case? They don't have people just watching and seeing where the numbers should be?
You tell me. I think they have low limits and they have a pretty square client base. I'm sure they don't have an app that people can bet, so you have to physically be at the racetrack, I think, to bet there. But I just, nevertheless, I see their numbers on the screen, and I'm always amazed at some of the numbers that pop up there.
The last question, Steve, was another Patreon, and we're a little bit late on this one, but I still want to hear your thoughts. We get a lot of questions like this. It's from Matt Heinz, who is one of our awesome patrons, patreon.com/RTmedia, and he sent this on our private Slack channel. I have both teams in the Stanley Cup Finals to win. Panthers +700, Oilers +850. Is there anything I can do, should do, to maximize profit, or do I just sit back and enjoy? That's Matt Heinz coming to us. Patrons, obviously, they're paying to be a patron, so if they ask a question, they go to the top of the line.
I think you just sit back and crack open your favorite beer, Ross.
Light.
There you go. And hope that the series doesn't get canceled, right? Having said that, there is a comp. We just saw it in the NBA. Team was down 0-3. Dallas crushed Boston Game 4 and then came up empty. So if I had to bet Game 5 tonight, similar situation. Edmonton just won 1-0 in Game 4. So probably it's Florida's game tonight. So if I had to bet the game tonight, I would lean to Florida.
Got it. That's interesting, man. He had futures on the Panthers and the Oilers. Hey Matt, you got to hit me back up on patreon.com/RTmedia. Now I want to know how many futures he had. Right, like if you had the 2 teams in the Stanley Cup Final, I'm going to guess those weren't the only 2 futures he had. But still, pretty nice tickets there. He's at Fezzik Sports. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. Already excited, Steve, for next week. Good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for tuning in to Even Money. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.